London, Devon, Sweden, Ireland, Lithuania, Brisbane, New Zealand, France, Austria, Leeds, Irvine, Nottingham,
From
more from
everywhere.
Germany, yeah, Spain, Switzerland, South Africa, more from France, Mexico, Portland, Austin, Texas, Phoenix, Memphis, Dallas. Wow, you guys are everywhere. So Hong Kong, great. This is Louis.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome, everyone.
Welcome to our first webinar. We are hugely over the moon about sharing more with you guys and around the world with lots of people trying to identify with the same challenge and really trying to solve this with our industry. Wouldn't it be a fantastic world if we had all of the owners, the engineers, the architects, the contractors, all of the teams involved, right the way through to the person that receives all of those BIM-rich deliverables, so that they could agree on something. And that was our principle. That's what we set out to try to do. Owners are asking for improvements in the design workflow. Architects are signing up for sometimes things that maybe they can't deliver just so that they can win a project. We've heard that many more times than I thought I would over the last 12 months. We have engineers saying that they're spending more time than they estimated on their BIM projects. This is supposed to be a lean workflow where we're actually optimizing and saving time. And then some contractors saying that they can't close out projects. So it's a real situation where we're in our industry with a lot of risk in our projects. What we see in lots of other industries is a planning set of tools, authoring, analysis, and use. And when you replicate that to our industry, we see some fantastic authoring tools, some really good analysis tools, and also on the use side of things. And this is not an exhaustive list, there's many more. But in the planning side, we're still using Word, Excel, and PDFs, and generally that type of tool. What if we could have a simple platform that could manage the geometry? So what elements, essentially how much detail you are putting into that model on those elements? How accurate does that need to be? So how mature does that output need to be? How accurate from a delivery of a design? What is it going to be used for? And then how much information? So who is responsible for putting what information into or associated with or using the model at what point in time? And what if we could create that platform in a very simple way, a web-based collaborative platform on a single dedicated environment for our industry? And when we asked that question 12 months ago, we tried to get 10 companies to work with. I've shared this a couple of times, but we were blown away. So in 3 weeks, we had 850 companies that wanted to work with us. And we have worked with a lot of those teams over the last 12 months. And it has been a really special time for us. I really appreciate that. In the first 30 days, we had users in over 30 countries, and that has grown since. And those teams are telling us that they're saving time and standardizing their workflow. So that's the exciting part. But enough about the slides.
They want to get to the
They want to get to the good stuff. Yeah, we tried to rush through that. If you have questions on that side of things, please ask. You shared with us that you would like a platform to tie all of that together. So we talk about the word processing, the spreadsheet work, the updates on a schedule, on a Gantt chart. How could we tie all of that together with a contracting mechanism as well? Let's take a closer look into the software. A simple click to go to the login. And one of the things that I like to use is our social login to be able to log in with a social profile. What we saw, as I mentioned, was that desire to tie all of this together. What we have in one project is the plan, that expectation on the word processing side of things, the scoping, the expectation on the spreadsheet, but in a rich database dedicated for BIM. And then the flow is the representation of those tasks and the management of them to be able to get things done. So let's take a look, first of all, at creating a new project. We will pretend that we are a BIM manager, and it's a new project, an HQ building for our owner called Infinite Space is their name. We are going to build an office, and we are going to be the BIM manager on this project. And quite simply, we hit create, and we have created our new project. We found on our travels, as we asked people what they would like, one thing came up time and time again was there's a lot of standard stuff in projects in their planning and scoping, but there's a lot of bespoke stuff as well. So we optimize the standard stuff, and we put in the ability now to have our project information all in one location. No more copying and pasting from maps. So we can now put the the Walt Disney Concert Hall, and we can turn to a satellite of the area. We could even drop a man down. And so now we can start to see right at street level of the buildings around and also our project. We're using this as an example, but we have a picture of what we're going to place in our project. We can add a logo for our team, and we can start to add team members as well. So I know that Ted Morton, our friend Ted, we've got contact details with him. He's in San Francisco. He's the project manager. We don't have to enter that every time we set the project up. I'll ask Louis to go through the team section and start building that out with some of the other teams. But one of the things that a lot of the time people start with is some company standards of their own. So when we're adding to our plan, we add sections to our plan. And we can either pull from sections that we've created before, we could pull from projects that we're associated with, or globally where they have been shared. We're going to start from scratch on this one, and we're just simply going to create a project section, a plan section, and this is going to be related to our processes, and then I can copy the table. So quite simply, I can grab content from our existing Word-based process and paste that in. I could start editing this inside the browser and hit save and close, and now we get this. One of the key things that we've been acutely aware of, the time-saving part. So when we're working in a word processing document, it's been incredibly time-consuming for me personally to go between a plan and a landscape. So for example, so here we've just put a portrait and landscape. So when we turn it from portrait to landscape, you can see that the tables will all adjust for themselves. So we can really expedite that workflow. The ability to do that rather than putting things in different documents is really useful there. I'm going to now add some content that we've had before from other projects. So if we go to our projects, and I know that we have a company standard that we have set up, and I can simply check all of them or maybe not check some of them. I can see how they've been performing, so how many times they've been used and whether people are liking those, and we can pull in those other sections. So straight away, we've got our mission statement, our executive summary. You can see this has come from the Penn State executive summary, and all of these different sections that are now available to us. Another time-saving thing was being able to reorder these. So section 5 at the moment is the signature block, but if we want to drag that to the bottom, let's place it at the bottom, becomes section 10, and now when we click on that section, go to it, it's at the bottom and renumbered. Other things that we can add are, for example, an iframe. One of the projects that we have worked on has got some 3D content, and maybe we would like to use this 3D project overview as an example. And if I bring this in, so this is an embedded iframe that is showing us the 3D model. And we could put a lot of different things in. We could put a spreadsheet embedded in here. We could put a survey in here. We could put our calendars in here for managing our meetings and our schedules. Lots and lots of different types of inputs that can be referenced into a BIM execution plan. So incredibly powerful compared to the traditional process of just having a PDF. I just heard from Louis that he has updated some of our company standards. Let's take a look. He said that the executive summary has been updated. One thing that you'll notice, because I pulled this from our standards, is this replace button. And if I click on this, you can see, he's added a video, it looks like. Fred from B1M. So if we replace that, it now pulls in that update. And so you can see, okay, we've got an embedded video. I'll start that playing, but let's stop it so that we don't get the sound as well. Being able to manage standards in one place, being able to update them and being able to run through that workflow is really, really key. The other thing that Louis was doing while we were working was the teams. If I open up the team section, you'll now see we've got other team members and other teams, and Louis will complete that and add the other people as we go through. Let's move on to the scoping. We've used Excel documents and running Google spreadsheets in the past, but what we found was that it became difficult. They've not been designed to be a database with a rich and powerful dedicated database behind them. So what we've done here is the ability here to be able to add scope. Again, the same principle of scope that I have created, scope that the projects have been shared with me, and then globally shared scope. And if we add our own, we can start to say, let's call this scope the structural scope. Structural. Okay, spelling is a challenge for me today. And this is a design scope. Maybe we want the walls. We can start to look at bringing in different sections for walls, for example, vertical structure, exterior walls. Let's bring in foundations, standard foundations, special foundations. And as we build up this scope, we're building in the background this list of scope underneath our summary of that scope, the structural scope. It's automatically created as a milestone, and then we can start assigning the LODs required. Oh, and I did this absolutely by purpose, so you can see that we have multiple standards. So I'm going to change our account to be the LOD for the LOD and LOA combination. We also support others and make it a universal application across the world because people use different standards. So let's go back to that scope and let's choose to add something so that we can now manage this using our standard LOD practice. I'm going to just bring in some scope just so that you can see how we would add scope from other projects. And you can choose which standard you would like to use. So let's pull in from example project standards, example company standards. And let's pull in the interior and the building system scopes. And so if we hit add, what this is going to do now is pull in and aggregate those so that we can update our project to those scopes. And there you can see really quick to bring in scope from other people. One of the scopes you might want to bring in is from the owner. So you could bring in from the owner their requirements, and it could be information requirements that they have assigned to every single one of those pieces of scope. We can bring in team assignments. We can dig into the details. Not much time in this webinar. The LOD concept is a very complex topic. And since inception, we've spent many years working with teams to improve how to apply and understand how to apply it. The last year, we've especially just gone around the world and understood what people are finding challenging with it. And what we found there were 6 major challenges, and most of them were related to the flexibility. That's something that we'll cover in much more detail in future webinars. If we would like to look at more detail to see in the water distribution, maybe we brought this in from a team that's working on this, we can see that there are, down to the element level, what we can turn on and off. So maybe we are not wanting to choose to model certain parts, so we can turn on and off the elements inside of the system so we can get to exactly what we're looking for. We can then start to assign teams. One of the cool things, so Louis just added all of the teams in here. So we can start to say, okay, the plumbing team is responsible from the estimating phase right the way through. And we can start to assign these teams. Louis, maybe if you want to
I can finish
run in and just as we're pressed for time. So Louis is going to start to add some more of these people, so responsibilities as we go through. And I'm going to move on to the flow page. A lot of teams are creating scopes in different documentation and then not having the opportunity to manage it in the place that they've created it. Let's take a milestone, for example, the coordination milestone. You can see what we are requiring for that coordination. When you are inside of a milestone, we now expedite that pull planning workflow so that we can print the pull planning cards using all of that rich data. So very quickly, we've got our document created, and we can then download this and start to cut up these and use this in the pull planning workflow. Understanding assignments. So Louis started to create some other assignments. So now we've got some other the HVAC guys on board. And each one of these can be used really, really quickly in that pull planning workflow. We can then start to manage digitally, and by moving cards around, we can also assign responsibilities. So now we can assign people, we can assign the dates that we have chosen, and add attachments and links and checklists and so on and so forth. So it's a Kanban board, much like the systems that people are trying to use that were not necessarily tied to the scoping workflow and the contracting workflow before. We can share the plan and they can see this information as a viewer. So viewers, you can add as many viewers. but we still want to be able to print a PDF. When you go to the docs, Louis just created, so these are the flow cards that I just created. If we print a PDF and download that PDF, we can now see all of that information, that aggregation of that data. And so you can see all of the logos, you can see all of the contact details for everybody. So there's our friend Ted, and all of the contents from the plan, all of the different sections from the plan, video embedded with links to things. We see a summary of the table of the work in the LOD table in the matrix. And we also see where we have specified which elements, what LOD for what parties, right the way through that process. So really rich export of that data as well, so that it can be always available as a contract document. And that was one of the real challenges, that could we keep a live BIM execution plan and workflow for collaboration, and at the same time, can we archive those as we go? What we have enabled is that ability to be able to keep a web-based version live with all of your viewers that can come into the environment, but also manage that so that you can archive at any point in time.